Imagine waiting like 10 grueling years for a verdict on a horrific, publicly broadcasted assault. And when the ruling finally comes down, well, the attackers just walk free on a technicality.
Yeah, and not just that. You, as the victim, are legally ordered by the judge to read Mahatma Gandhi to, fix your mindset.
Exactly. It is wild. Welcome to today's deep dive, everyone. We are looking at the staggering March 17th, 2026 Verival verdict on the 2016 Una Dalit flogging case.
Right, and just to set the table for you listening today, our sources dig into some intensely charged politics surrounding caste and state violence in India. I mean, our mission here isn't to take a side or endorse any specific left or right viewpoint. We are just going to neutrally unpack the socio-legal mechanics of this verdict based purely on the reporting.
Yeah, so you can understand exactly how a legal system even arrives at this kind of outcome.
So to understand this bizarre verdict, we really have to look at the 2016 incident that started this whole decade-long legal battle.
Right, take us back to that.
Well, in July 2016, 7 members of the Sarvaiya family, who belong to the historically marginalized Dalit community, were doing their ancestral work. They were skinning a cow carcass in Gujarat.
And forensics later proved this cow had actually been killed by a lion.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
But to the dominant caste vigilantes who showed up, I mean, that didn't matter at all. They tied the family to an SUV, beat them with iron pipes, and paraded them through the streets.
God, that is awful.
It is. And what makes this case particularly notorious is that the attackers intentionally filmed themselves and posted the video online. It wasn't a hidden crime at all. It was a broadcasted assertion of social dominance.
Right. So fast forward 10 years to the 2026 verdict. Out of 41 people on trial, 35 were completely acquitted, and that includes 4 police officers.
Wow.
Yeah, only 5 were convicted. But here's the catch. They were immediately released. The judge applied a principle called set-off justice.
Set-off justice. What does that mean in this context?
Well, since the trial took so long, these men had already spent 5 years in jail awaiting a verdict. So their new 5-year sentence was instantly canceled out.
Yeah.
I mean, okay, let's unpack this. It operates almost like a bizarre legal accounting error, right?
Right.
A violent crime is essentially paid off using administrative delays as currency years before a judge even strikes the gavel.
Yeah, the punishment is just downgraded into this, historical administrative credit.
But how does a trial stall long enough to create that exact time-served loophole?
Well, you have to look at how the local legal apparatus handled the case. Early on, the Gujarat High Court refused to let an independent central agency like the CBI take over the investigation. They just kept it regional.
Okay, so it stays local.
Right, and then local courts granted bail to the accused, using the logic that since the trial would inevitably take a long time, keeping them locked up would deprive them of their liberty.
Wait, really? So because the system knows it's incredibly slow, they just let the accused out to live right next door to the people they attacked?
Yes, that is exactly how the delay becomes a weapon. Our sources say accused individuals out on bail were literally driving the witnesses to the courthouse.
Oh, wow. So the intimidation was happening right out in the open.
Absolutely. And if you look at the data, under the SCST Atrocities Act, which is the specific law designed to protect marginalized castes and tribes in India, the conviction rate in Gujarat back in 2016 was a mere 4.7%.
That is incredibly low.
It is. The legal system relies on what analysts call administrative exhaustion. It is a war of attrition where the process is the punishment, It's designed to bankrupt and exhaust the victims until they are forced into survival compromises and the case quietly collapses.
Right, and this systemic exhaustion paved the way for the judge's deeply unusual psychological focus in the final ruling. The judge actually dismissed the victim's severe mental trauma.
Wait, on what grounds?
Because their physical X-rays and MRIs were technically normal. The court accused the victims of intentionally performing their pain for the media.
You're kidding. So the ruling essentially inverts the roles.
Pretty much. The judge characterized the victims as emotional members and blamed them for inciting the massive protests and tragic suicides that erupted after the video went viral.
Instead of focusing on the perpetrators.
Exactly. And here is where it gets really interesting. The court then ordered the local legal authority to give the victims free copies of Mahatma Gandhi's autobiography, My Experiments with Truth. The stated goal was to change the victim's vichardhara, or ideology.
Wait, why is the state prescribing moral literary therapy to the victims of violence while the perpetrators are released into the community? Is that even a legally enforceable remedy?
I mean, that's the big question. The judge actually noted he would have ordered the accused to read the book too, but couldn't find a provision in the law to do so.
So by directing this at the victims, The court treats structural violence not as a criminal failure of the state, but as like a psychological failing of the marginalized victims themselves.
Exactly. So where does this leave the Sarvaya family after 10 years? Well, the sources note that back in 2018, to seek the dignity the state failed to provide, they actually converted to Buddhism. And today, they plan to appeal the verdict.
Yeah, this deep dive really reveals how bureaucratic delays don't just slow justice, they can actively rewrite it. The courts transform into instruments of what the sources call sovereign indifference.
Effectively just shrugging their shoulders at the violence.
Which leaves us with a pretty heavy question to consider as we wrap up today. If a justice system's extreme delays inadvertently create a built-in time-served shield for perpetrators, how can a society ever establish true legal deterrence for crimes that are committed and broadcasted purely for public spectacle?